Okay, so today we are starting with lesson 6.1, which is understanding percent. So we actually have already talked a little bit about percent. We talked about percents back when we did fractions and decimals, when we worked with equivalent decimals, fractions, and percents. We talked about all the different ways to convert between all three different formats. So we learned about DP. We learned about changing decimals to percents, percents to decimals, how to change a fraction to a percent, and so on. What you need to understand, and what most of us should know, is that percent is a ratio that compares a number to 100. What I emphasized when we very first started working with percents was that percents are always out of 100. Okay, so we have an example here with 3 golfers, and it shows their ratio of their hits, like that they actually made in the hole, versus how many putts it took them to get there. Okay, so golfer number 1 had a 13 to 20 ratio. Golfer 2 had a 15 to 25 ratio, and golfer 3 had an 18 to 50 ratio. So what we're going to do is we're going to rewrite these ratios as a percent. So when it tells us to rewrite each ratio as a percent, it says that for step 1, we're going to multiply the denominator by a number to make it equivalent to 100s, because percents are always out of 100. So when I'm looking at golfer 1, their ratio was a 13 to 20 ratio. I want to change this to a percent out of 100. So what do I do to 20 to get to 100? Susie? Yeah, I'm going to times 5. So I'm going to do the same thing to the top. That makes that 65 hundredths. Since percents are out of 100, my percentage is 65%. Golfer 2 has a 15 to 25 ratio. So I'm going to multiply by 4 to reach 100. So then 15 times 4 makes 60, which is equivalent to 60%. And then golfer 3, to do this one, I'm going to multiply by 2, which is a 36%. Okay, now I can also show these as grids. I can model percentages, just like I can model fractions and model decimals with the same hundreds grid. It's a hundreds grid because percents are out of what? 100. Okay, so for the first one, I'm going to show 65%. I'm just going to very poorly shade in 6 tens and then 5 ones. For golfer 2, just 6 tens. And then for golfer 3, only 3 tens and 6 ones. Okay, so then the highest percent, which is the best score, is going to be which golfer? 1. This is so that if you want to draw what golfer 1 looks like, you can. The lowest percent would be like our worst score, and that's going to be golfer number 3. Okay. He's still smiling, so that's good. He's not giving up. Persistent. Okay. Well, what if I gave you a problem and I said, okay, well, I'm going to give you part of a number, and I want you to tell me what percent that's going to be. Okay, we're going to look at how we can solve it without that third page that I had you glue in, because I'm going to break it down for you in like a ratio table format here in a minute. All right. So what I want to do whenever I'm solving percent problems, first, I need to remember that percent is always a number compared to 100. So if I'm trying to find 35% of 60, I want to, first of all, I got to remember that of means, anybody know? Multiply. Just like when we worked with fractions, if I take half of another number, I'm actually multiplying it. So of means multiply. Same thing here. So 35% of 60. I'm going to first write my percent as a fraction out of 100. So I'm going to write my percent like this, 35 over 100. I want to find what 35% of 60 is. Well, we know of means multiply, so I'm going to figure out times 60. But what do y'all remember I have to do when I'm multiplying with whole numbers? What do I have to do? I got to put it over 1. So once I set up my problem, now I'm actually going to figure out what 35% of 60 is. So I'm just going to solve it. 35 times 60, I'll save y'all some time, is 2100. And then 100 times 1 is just 100. Y'all know your shortcut when you have zeros on top and bottom? Remove them. So my answer is 21. So that'd be like me saying, okay, we have 60 students, 35% of them are absent. How many students are absent today? That would be 21 are absent. Okay. All right, let's look at the next one. It says find 42% of 400. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start by setting my percent up out of 100. I'm going to write it as a fraction. So 42 out of 100 of means multiply 400. What do I need to do with 400? Put it over 1. And I can just multiply straight across. This is going to be 16,800. That's not a decimal. That's supposed to be a comma. Divided by 100. Remember your shortcut. Cross out those zeros. So 168. You can always ask yourself if my answer is reasonable. 42 is close-ish to 50%. We know 50% is half. Half of 400 is 200. So I know it's going to be a little under 200. So would my answer be reasonable? Yeah, it should be. Yes. Yeah, go ahead and try the last one on your own. You're doing 2 problems in one, really, because you got to compare them. And then we'll check it together. I'm going to go ahead and explain up to this point, because some of you may be stuck once you get here. So you cross out, if you like that shortcut of crossing out your zeros to make your number smaller, that's great. So that I'm left with 256 divided by 10. Remember, guys, when you divide or multiply by powers of 10, it's as simple as moving one place to the left or to the right. If I'm dividing, am I making 256 smaller or larger? Smaller. So I would only move it one place to the left, so it's 25.6.
Which is bigger.
If I'm dividing 126 by 10, it's like if I had a decimal and I moved it one place to the left, so it's 12.6. So which one is greater?
The first one.
The first one. Good.
The alligator eating.
Okay.
Running away.
So this one, like, when, how do you know to divide by 10?
Because you marked out these 2 zeros. So it's 256 over 10, which means 256 divided by 10.
But if you...
What we do.
Yes.
Okay. We know that percents, you got to listen careful. We know that percents are out of 100. We know that we can compare parts to wholes, okay? Because the 100 is our whole. The percent is part of the whole, unless it's 100%, okay? But we write it as percent out of 100 representing part to whole. So when you have a question that looks like this, what is 15% of 90? I know my percent, okay? Look at how I have this set up here. I have percent over 100 on the right side. So I'm going to fill in 15 where the percent is in the top right. Percent's always in the top right. What do you think goes on the bottom right every time? 100. Even if I don't know what the percent is, I know that 100 always goes in the bottom right, always. Okay, the other thing that I know of 90, I'm looking for the number that is 15% of 90. Do you think the 90 is the whole or the part?
The whole.
It's the whole. So I'm going to put 90 here. And guess what? I already have my problem set up and I can solve it. So what I'm going to do now is multiply my 2 diagonal numbers. 90 times 15. And 90 times 15 is 1,350. And I will divide that by 100 because that's what I left out. So when I do 1,350 divided by 100. I know that 100 goes into 135 one time. I know, yes, I know that it goes into 353 times. And then I have to add that decimal. And then it's 5. So my answer is 13.5. Yes, it's not hard.
That's fun.
It just takes practice. Some of y'all picked it up quickly. We're going to do another example.
Miss Watson, can you just cross out the 0 and then put the decimal on?
Okay, look at number 2. This one's different. Number 2 going down says 15 is what percent of 80? This time I'm looking for the percent. I don't know what my percent is, but I do know that percents are out of 100. 15 is what percent of 80? Where do you think the 80 goes? On the bottom. So where do you think the 15 goes? On the top left. So this time I have my part to whole. I'm trying to figure out what the percentage is. So this time I'm going to cross multiply these two numbers, which is 1,500. And I'm going to divide that by 80.
Why would you say that?
What?
He said, can I go?
Oh, Kate, you can go out into the hall, please. Whoever said that. Go out into the hall. Okay. 80 times 8 is 640. 60 is left over. You're just dividing it all out. Why? This is 400, so that is going to be 5. And then it stops there. So my percentage, is it possible to have a decimal percent?
Yes.
Yes, it is. We just proved it. This is my answer.
Miss Watson.
Okay.
Miss Watson, why on the top one we did the answer up in the top left, but on the other one?
Oh, good question. So somebody said, why this time was our answer in the top right, not in the top left? It's because of the way the question is asked. It says, what is, I already know the percent and the total, 15% of 90. So I plug in my pieces here based on this chart, okay? So on the second one, it said 15 is, goes here. What percent? I don't know. Of 80. We know 100 always goes in the bottom right. Every single one of these is going to have 100 in the bottom right. Every one of them. Because your percent's always out of 100.
Can I go to the bathroom?
Okay, look at number 3. 68 is... Where does 68 go? Top left. 20% always goes, the percent always goes top right. Of what number? So the of is what I'm looking for this time.
No, it's going in the bottom then. How is it going in the bottom then now?
Okay. So you can do your butterfly method. 6,800 divide by 20 goes in 3 times, and then 4, and then 0. So 340 would be my answer. Okay, you're not dividing by 5, I don't think. Oh, okay. Yeah, because what you're doing is you're going 20 times 5 to get to 100, so 68 times 5 gets you 340. Okay, you have a completed example for each one of those. Do we need to do the other ones, or do you want to try them with your table and just see if you got it? I think those work out easier. They're a little easier to do. They're quicker. No decimals, no weird numbers. Okay, so going back and double checking. Number 4, you are going to cross multiply 125 times 60 and you get 7,500. Divide by 100 is 75. Number 5. Number 5. You're looking for the percent. It says 72 is what percent of 90? 100 is always in the bottom right. 72 is up here of 90. So I cross multiply, I get 7,200 and divide by 90 to get 80 for the missing one. And the last one I'm going to multiply 216 times 100, which is 21,600. Divide it by 30% to get 720. Okay.